Wow, I got a lot of feedback from my last podcast on one question, actually, that I answered twice during that podcast. And it was the specific statement that I made that we were trying to achieve a whole of government contracting program for veteran owned small businesses. And those are veteran owned small businesses that don't have service connected disabilities. In that same podcast, I said, we don't need any additional legislation in order to achieve the mission of producing maximum practicable utilization for veterans. I'm going to square that circle for you during this particular podcast. And then the second thing I'm going to do is share an answer to a question that a prospective customer asked me recently. And the question was, how would you define yourself in the GovCon space? And I simply told that individual that I define myself as the Wayne Gretzky of GovCon. Want to understand what that means? Sit a spell and I'll explain it to you. Hey, thanks for sticking with me through that transition. And I want to say good morning, good evening, good afternoon to my global audience. My name is Walter Cotton, and I am going to be your host for my Patriot Report. And let me answer that Gretzky question right up top, right off the top of the key, as the kids would say, because I don't want you to get the wrong impression. So I was going through the process of onboarding a client, and they were doing their due diligence and interviewing me, and they asked me that question, like in as few words as possible, right? How would you define your position in the GovCon space? And I simply said to him, I would define my position, myself, as the Wayne Gretzky of GovCon. And he proceeded to ask me to elaborate. Like, why would you define yourself that way? Are you saying that you're the GOAT of GovCon? And I said, no. What I am is an individual that follows the strategy and philosophy that Wayne Gretzky followed to success. When he was asked, Mr. Gretzky, right, what makes you such a proficient hockey player? Right? What makes you such an amazing scorer? Gretzky said simply, I skate to where the puck is going to be. In my GovCon advising, what I do is I lead my clients to where the market is emerging to, not where it is right now, right? Everybody's rushing into the space that it is right now, but I like to look out at the horizon and see where the emergent opportunities are and pursue them. I've always been that way. It's kind of like a unique talent that I've had all my life. It reminds me of the early days when I was on the commercial civilian side of the equation, working as the president and general manager of an interconnect. And for those of you who don't know what interconnects are, these are the companies that sell PBX systems into campuses and enterprises, local phone systems. That's what we did. And I can recall a circumstance where I was rapidly promoted from a accounting technician to the president and general manager of that organization. And I did so, or should I say achieve that goal, because I was able to help the owner uncover fraud. And he said, Walter, hey, can you run the business? And I said, of course. And so several months into this particular effort, after I had hired a subject matter expert to be my general manager, and this guy was the bomb diggity. I mean, he had a bunch of technicians across the country. He knew the Mitel and Hitachi PBX systems that we were working like with his eyes closed. And so he was the subject matter expert from a technician that I needed to operationalize my strategies in that space. And I can recall one day the owner took John and I out to dinner. And you can just imagine like a swanky restaurant in St. Petersburg, Florida, right? That's where we were having this dinner, and I ordered myself a cocktail. Appetizers were on their way, and the owner said, and looked across the table at John and said, without looking at me, let me ask you a question. And John said, sure, go right ahead. He said, could you run this business? Now, I was taken aback by that question because, of course, I'm the president and general manager sitting right there next to him. And I was curious as to why my boss, the owner of the business, was asking that question. But to my surprise, John did not miss a beat in answering the question this way. He said, listen, Mike, I'm not going to share the guy's last name. I can run this business with my eyes closed. He said, but what I can't do is what Walter can do. And Mike said, well, what is that? And John said, keep the business relevant. Walter has the kind of vision to kind of see where this interconnect space is migrating to and position our enterprise on track to take advantage or intersect that value migration. It's kind of just a natural talent that I don't know. I've just organically had all my life. For example, when I was wrestling with the hard problem as a contractor of how I get past performance, right? How do I get contract viable in the federal space? I did everything that the advising community told me to do, right? I got my certifications, I got everything that I needed. Then I loaded up my truck and I went up to DC only to find that I needed past performance. I needed capability and capacity. I needed the ability to be responsible and responsive before a contracting officer would consider risking a contract with me. And once I found that out, the kind of advising I was getting at that time was, and you guys have heard me share this one before, stop me if you heard this one. If you want to be a proficient federal contractor, you first have to start out by subcontracting with an existing prime, and eventually you will build enough standalone past performance to be able to prime your own contracts on your own. Well, listen, folks, I was a mature individual coming into the federal space, coming from a Fortune 500 background, and I wasn't preparing myself to be a peon on somebody's team. I was preparing myself to lead the team. And so what I did was what I was taught as a child, which was go home and study myself approved. And I found my way to language in the Code of Federal Regulation that pointed to the ability to utilize joint ventures, small business joint ventures. And if you take a preference owning organization, combine it with an organization that's got capability and capacity, is responsible and responsive, bada boop, bada bing, you dynamically engineer a preference owning organization with capability and capacity. And I said, oh, well, gosh, I'll give that a try. And I did so, won my first contract, which, as you know, based on them putting me on the cover of the Veterans Business Journal at that time, was an $8 million contract award. It was novel. It was unheard of at that time because 10650, the service disabled veteran contracting law, was new. It was so new that they hadn't even completely ratified Public Law 108-183, which is the law that actually created the contracting tools that the contracting officers need to get to the small businesses. Yet I digress. The long story that I'm delivering, which I'll make shorter here, is even in this GovCon space, when I took a look at it, I asked the question, why not? Right? Why can't I prime a contract today? And as I read the laws and regulations, the laws said, Mr. Cotton, not only can you, but you should, because it is the policy of Congress to utilize small businesses in providing goods and services to our agencies to the maximum extent practicable. Now, I had a Fortune 500 background coming into this arena because I had done that same kind of innovation in my tenure with Sprint. And during that season, I was working on the indirect channel side of that organization, right? That's the partner program side of that organization. And we were working in the SMB space, right? That's the small and mid-sized business space. And I asked the question, why aren't we servicing multinationals with this particular strategy, with this particular approach? And everybody looked around the room and scratched their head and they said, there's no reason why we couldn't. We just never thought of it. And we did. We brought on people like NEC and CDW and now all of the carriers in their partner programs, their indirect channels, have multinational players as well as the SMB space. I'm sharing all of this with you to give you a clear understanding of my ability to provide you with guidance that's going to be relevant during the season that we're in right now. And the season that we're in right now as vetrepreneurs is one of the richest seasons that we are, I think, ever going to see again in my lifetime. And it's a season where we have an economic condition where everyone has recognized that what we've been doing hasn't been working for us, right? So us offshoring our manufacturing under the NAFTA treaty today wasn't such a good idea because we've got critical elements. We've got critical products and services that we have to go to unfriendly nations to get. So we have a vital need right now to reshore manufacturing assets right here in these United States of America. In addition to that, our supply chain is challenged. It's broken in some areas, like for example, Baltimore with the Francis Scott Key Bridge implosion, right? That has created a contested logistics situation that's going to go on for some years until they clear that particular issue up. In this season, America needs to do everything that it can to stop, drop, and roll and revitalize our manufacturing capability so that we can make something, and I mean make something good and sell it to the world so that we can get our product name, get our product brand back to the place that it used to be back in the day. Like, I'm old enough to remember when Made in America meant something, right? We need to get back there today, fast, quick, in a hurry, for reasons that your popular media is probably not telling you about. And this is, again, an example of me looking out at the tea leaves and seeing it a little bit differently. But the point that I am referencing here is the Saudis' decision not to renew our petrodollar position, our clearinghouse position, right? Our position as the world reserve currency is going to have a irreversible impact on our economy. And for those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about there, research it, right? Research what our benefit was and value of owning the petrodollar was. And, well, let me just give you a quick high-level synopsis. When we were the bearers of the petrodollar, we had the benefit that came from the fact that all other nations needed to use dollars to buy petroleum, the oil and gas that they need for their nations. That was our agreement. The Saudis said we would clear all petroleum transactions, irrespective of the country that it came from, in dollars. Well, what that meant for those other countries was they had to have a positive trading deficit with the United States in order to get dollars. So we had an unfair advantage in our import-export position for the goods and services that we did manufacture. Take that value, take that benefit away, and now you have other nations talking about utilizing other currencies to clear petroleum sales. What that means is our products and services just instantly became less valuable on the world stage. And we need to correct that because the economic impact of that kind of a decision and event, it's ascending, right? It's like a tsunami, right? The first thing you see is the water rushing away from the shore, and the fools rush in to get the fish that are there. But eventually you see that big wave that's going to overtake everything. And what I am recommending is that we proactively do the things that we need to do to insulate our economic position, to reshore our manufacturing capability, and reestablish our brand as the preferred brand on the world stage. I equally believe that if we're going to take on a mission like this, him and her who bore the battle, I'm talking about our veterans, our veterapreneurs out there, should be given the first bite at this particular economic apple. So whether or not we're utilizing the facilities in the Defense Production Act, or we're utilizing the sole source and set aside capabilities under the standard procurement laws and regulations, it's my belief, it's my hallucination that our veterans should be given the first rights of refusal, the first opportunity to take advantage of those contracting efforts. And fortunately, the laws and regulations in this nation support that mission. It supports that value proposition. And this is kind of me segueing into answering that dual question that people thought I delivered during the last podcast, because I said it. That's right. I said it. I said it loud and clear. What I said was, I, who have gone through the process of working with Congress to get things like the All Small Business Mentor Protege Program and SBA in place. That's right. I'm the dude that wrote the foundational legislation that made that happen. Or if we talk about bait and switch language for prime contractors who were utilizing small businesses for their proposal responses, but weren't giving them any business after the awards, right? We put those regulations in place. The prompt payment regulation, parity in federal contracting. These are all examples of regulatory efforts that I had the benefit of participating in. And as you know, I'm currently participating in the effort to create a gold contracting program for my veteran-owned small business brethren. And we are targeting the Department of Defense right now and have successfully caused the House to add that language to their version of the National Defense Authorization Act. But the whisper word that I'm getting on the street is that for whatever reason, the Senate is not backing that same right-minded decision. And so I'm going to let that one play out as it will. I'm prayerful that the Senate is going to come to their senses and they're going to do the right thing, because it would be wholly inappropriate, in my humble opinion, for a Defense Authorization Act that reinstates selective service to not take into consideration the needs of those individuals that we've already created as veterans. The need for them to more completely and more fully participate in the American dream, not to take that into consideration and not to do something about that. Well, I'm prayerful that if that outcome does present itself, that my veteran community raise its full and deep-throated voice and holds each one of those elected officials accountable for their action. And therefore, I'm sitting back and I'm saying I'm not going to expend any additional energy going after Congress, because Congress should already know how to do the right thing for him and her who bore the battle. I equally have private knowledge and understanding of the existing legislative and policy landscape, because I've been so effective at influencing it, that I recognize that we truly don't need any additional policies or laws in order to achieve a mission that's hyper-focused on making sure that veterans, disabled veterans, and those veterans that are not service-connected disabled have the maximum practicable opportunity to participate in the contracts that are let by this federal government. I have so much know-how about that that I have taken it upon myself to do something about it, right? There's one thing to recognize something. It's another thing to do something about it. And so the something that I'm going to do about it is I'm going to create a solution that empowers, no, I'm not going to. I've already created a solution that empowers him and her who bore the battle to look out at the contracts that the federal government is awarding and compel the contracting officers to award those contracts to them. I'm going to pause there for just a minute and let that one sink in, because I know that there are a lot of my contemporaries out there, right? The advisors that you guys are paying money to, who are scratching their head on that one. In this particular season, the set of rules and regulations that are in place right now create a superpower for him and her who bore the battle. If you are a veteranpreneur, if you are a disabled veteran, you're currently sitting on a superpower that positions you, puts you in a position to compel the contracting officers to award you what we've identified as more than $1.2 trillion worth of contracting activity that is moving through the federal space. What you need in order to capture your desired share of that $1.2 trillion is know-how. That's the simple barrier that you need to get over. You need the personal and private knowledge necessary to interface with the system in order for you to take advantage of that settled law. Well, I've been around this space long enough, and I've seen some innovations, right? I've seen a few people come in with some Gretzky-esque solutions that have changed the game in federal contracting. My good friend William Randolph recently introduced one of those Gretzky-esque kind of solutions in the micro markets. And you may see it behind me right there, the micro market solution that he put on the street. Folks, period. A simple revolution. For those of you who want to take advantage of entry into the federal space without having to go through all of the regulatory hoops, micro markets is your solution. For those of you who are not wanting to get on the attrition treadmill that current entrants into the federal government experience, you need a solution. Right? You need a comprehensive solution that's going to capture you where you are and guide you to the promised land of federal contracting that you want to be at. And currently, there is a new entrant in the technology space that's making that possible. It's making it plausible and available, and that is the artificial intelligence revolution, specifically the generative artificial intelligence revolution. Let me jump back and kiss myself. Talk about a game changer. This solution has the power to impact multiple industries across our nation, to include the GovCon arena. And so I have captured ownership of a asset, of a partnership in that arena, in that space, that is going to empower you with the capability and capacity to become both contract ready and contract viable with the snap of a finger, and then manage that win long term. So let me start at the beginning, right? Because what we've done is we've cobbled together a group of solutions that are envisioned by, built by, and owned by veterans. And we've put that solution set into a organized bundle that we're calling the Cotton Method. And through the Cotton Method of federal contracting, service-disabled veterans and veteran-owned businesses can go from zero to hero overnight. So let me explain the attributes of the system. On the front end of the system is the knowledge that you need to become contract ready. Contract ready, meaning you've got all of the certifications and all of the registrations that you need so that the government could pay you should you win a contract. We have partnered with a veteran-owned company, Govology, owned by my good friend Carol Barnard, or Barnard, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. And what Carol has done is Carol has said, Walter, here, take this GovCon content that has been created by the best GovCon minds in this nation and curate it to fit the Cotton method. So we've done that. So a part of this system, you get full access to the curated version of the GovCon solution set. We've connected that front end piece to a data analytics solution that is an expert system. And we're going to talk a lot about the difference between technology solutions and expert systems moving forward. But suffice to say that an expert system requires a subject matter expert to be in the room with the technologist when they are creating the solution. There are a lot of solutions, particularly in the data analytics arena, that were created by technologists, right? They understood that, the data's over here and, they can go and get the data, but they didn't know why they were reaching into the data bucket. And they didn't know what to do with the stuff that they pulled out of the data bucket. And so you've got solutions out there, and I'm not going to mention any names, right? These data analytics solutions that you run a report on it and you get numbers that are not reliable. Let me just say it that way. They are not reliable. I mean, I was aghast when I ran the numbers against one of those analytics solutions, and I'm looking at my expert system and those numbers, and I'm saying, hey, these things don't jive. What is my expert system in the analytics arena? It's a solution called FedMind, which is owned by GovSpend. And this solution, this expert system, was created by a technologist who understood GovCon. Ashok Meehan sat down and he cobbled together this expert system that's intuitive for anyone that wants to go into GovCon. And so what we've done is we've brought that tool into a relationship. We've bundled it in this solution that you're going to have access to through this program. We've taken those two assets, knitted them together with the number one veteran-owned generative AI solution in the procurement space, and it's owned by Procurement Sciences, and they've branded it AwardedAI. So we've got the front end that gets you contract ready. We've got the middleware that helps you find the assets and sources of supply so that you can become contract viable. And then we've got the disruptor, right, that allows you to compete for contracts in the most efficient manner. And I'm not talking about the, crappy knocks that you get against these AI programs that weren't created as expert systems for GovCon. And what you're experiencing right now in the AI arena is a group of neophytes, new entrants into the federal space are coming in and they're utilizing artificial intelligence generic, let me say it that way, artificial intelligence solutions like Chat GPT or Copilot to help them respond to an RFP or a proposal. And some of the backlash that we're getting out of the contracting community is a result of the efficiency of AI, the efficiency of Copilot and these other things to help a user write a grammatically correct paragraph, right? Or to format a grammatically correct proposal. And the knock from the contracting officers is, man, we're getting a higher volume of proposals that are aesthetically pleasing. They look good, but they don't say anything. That's where we have metered that inefficiency out of our AI system, because this AI solution you're going to learn was trained with the subject matter expertise that people like myself and that population of 1102s who are working with Christopher and his team to build this expert system. And we're going to take you behind the scenes. We're going to take you behind the graphic user interface so that you can take a look at that. And then on the back end of that generative artificial intelligence solution, I mean, this is a holistic end-to-end capability we're bringing to the needs of the vetrepreneur. We have taken into consideration proactively all of the tools that you need to manage the life cycle of your business. Everything, we're talking ERP here, right? Everything from your accounting, your marketing, your website development, project management, HR. I could go on, and you can look at the scene or screen, if you will, and see the number of apps that we are making available for you. So within this holistic expert system that I put together, that I'm calling the Cotton Method, you get end to end the solutions that you need so that you can duplicate the efforts that my past clients and current clients are enjoying in the federal space. How do you get access to that? Well, of course, it's a pay-to-play universe, right? I'm not government, and this solution ain't free, but it's worth every dollar that you would pay for it. We have a cohort that's starting October 1. You can surf out to the URL that you see on the screen, learn a little bit more about that cohort, and if it's a fit for you, go ahead and join. If it's not a fit for you, let it pass, right? Let it pass. Let it pass on to someone else. What I'm going to do with the remainder of the time that we have together in this season is I'm going to bring to you a group of vets just like you that are going through transitional processes in their business, looking for ways to maximize the dollar that they can get from the federal contracting spend. The first individual up is a gentleman by the name of Scott Allbright, who you all will learn has a successful construction concern in Chicago. He does construction and property management in Chicago, and he can see the writing on the wall. Guess what? There's a commercial real estate bubble that's about to pop, and the residential market is also challenged. So Scott was looking for a pivot for his company, looked in his wallet one day and recognized that he still had his service disabled veteran capability. And so he pivoted towards the federal contracting space. I'm going to introduce you to Scott, and we're going to chronicle Scott's experience so that those of you who are looky-hoos, right? Tire kickers, right? The ones that like to lurk and learn, you have something to edify yourself with. But for those of you who are sick and tired of being sick and tired and you're ready to go today, I would submit to you that you would benefit by being an early adopter of this Cotton Method. You simply can do that by being a part of the first cohort that goes through the system. And you know what? It doesn't matter whether you are a new entrant in this system or you're an emergent service disabled veteran that's trying to get your contract on. This program and system has something for all of you. What this program or system has nothing for is the service disabled veteran that's already knows it all, right? That's already got all of the I's dotted and T's crossed. There's another space for you. But those of you service disabled veterans that are truly tired of being sick and tired, take a look at my good friend Scott Allbright's example coming up in the Solution Zone next. And I look forward to seeing you in one of our courses. I have a very special treat for you. I have a service disabled veteran that has come up with a solution. He's cracked the code on the hard problem I would submit that a lot of you are wrestling with, which is, how do I maximize this service disabled veteran benefit? This gentleman, fortunately, has the need to make that decision from a successful perch. He's already taken a construction business and grown it to the millions of dollars. And now he is tilting at the service disabled veteran contracting space. His name is Scott Allbright. He joins us here today. Scott, welcome.
Thanks, Walter. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks you for being of service to our nation, continuing to be of service to our nation, because I know there are a lot of deserving veterans out there that need to hear your story. And let's start at the beginning. Like, who is Scott Allbright, and where did you come from?
Well, I grew up in a farming community and, had a good childhood. I went to college for a few years, but ran out of money and joined the Army to obtain the GI Bill so I could finish college and stationed overseas and had a good short military career. Uh, Came out with a service connected disability. Um, Married to a teacher and three kids. Now I'm a grandfather of five. And but along the way, after service, I was involved in quite a few different business ventures, and I've had a construction and real estate brokerage and property management operation
So,
for
so, so wait a second before you jump into the construction and property management piece. I want to get a better understanding of, like, what your transition out of service was, and what that experience was like, because you packed a lot in that. You said GI Bill, you said a business. Let's start at the beginning. What was your transition out of service like, and when was that exactly?
that was 1988, and it was challenging going from that military life to I'd enrolled in college and got back here to the States, and school was already in session for a week, and all the apartments were rented, so I ended up, the only thing I could find was this little trailer out on a lake. It was pretty bad, but it, not as bad as being out in the field. So, but I felt like at that point in time like I was a man amongst boys. I'd learned so much discipline and hardship that I had two jobs bartending. I was selling office equipment. I was taking a gigantic load in college, making really good grades, and just really focused on trying to get the schooling behind me and get out into the workplace, with a degree. So it was an adjustment, coming back to that private life, but it also felt good.
So fast forward, you successfully complete your degree, obviously, and now you're looking at, what you're going to do with the rest of your life, right? How did you get attracted to construction, and how did you start a construction concern?
Sure. I sold a bunch of different products, and along the way, I had some, my dad had some rental properties. So as a kid, I'd work on those, and I worked with carpenters in the summer. So I was always pretty handy. And, but then when I moved up to Chicago, I sold a bunch of different products before I started selling real estate, and was very successful in that space. And I started buying dilapidated single family homes, work on them during the evenings, fix them up and sell them. I do about one a quarter. So I kind of did real estate brokerage, and I started doing this rehabbing business. And then along the way, people would ask me to do a kitchen or a bath. And slowly the construction company uh, picked up more steam than the real estate brokerage. And then I started building luxury single family homes. And then after the crash, real estate crash in 2008, I went into Chicago, where we were buying a lot of dilapidated apartment buildings, rehabbing those, and then we built a property management company around those buildings, and that has had been my focus.
Interesting, interesting. And real estate, you can't talk to anyone without them saying that's the foundation of wealth for most families, right? Their real property. And so I'm interested in understanding how a gentleman that builds a real estate and construction business that's as successful as the one you just described, how does he get the wild hair up his butt to look at disabled veteran contracting? Like explain that transition.
Well, I follow a lot of economists online, and I'd say over the last 3 years, I've probably built 35 new construction apartment buildings. But that really started slowing down over the last year. Interest rates were up. I mean, inflation is up. It's affordability gap. I mean, there are all these issues taking place. Building costs, have just gone through the roof, labor and material. And I've been waiting kind of for this other shoe to drop. It's to me, we've been on this, um, this slow decline, and I started feeling uncomfortable, and I started thinking about, okay, well, I have this service uh, connected disability. I've had my company registered for years in the federal space. Once a month, I would go on SAM and go on some of these different websites or talk to the local PTAC, and it's such a big ocean. I just thought, boy, I don't know where to get started, how to get started. I knew I could use the knowledge I've learned over the last 35 years, in this private contracting space, and use it in the federal space. But just getting started was a challenge, and a lack of knowledge. And so really, I started really making a decision that I'm going to get into this space. I'm going to be successful. And so as I started researching that more, and getting in a position where I was contract ready, uh, I met Walter Cotton. And as you say, got a little cotton in my ear, and you put me on the right path.
Well, and this is the place for full disclosure for the audience. Scott is not just a successful commercial vendor that's now going into the federal contracting space. He's also a client. And so a lot of the attributes that he's going to talk about are going to be things that he's acquired through our relationship. But this isn't about me, right? It's not about me selling you on me. It's really about you having an opportunity to see someone who is similarly situated to the place that you may be at, and to give you an indication that there is a pathway forward if you search diligently for it. And let's talk about that, Scott, because I can imagine when you looked out at this ocean, which is GovCon, right, the federal government contracting space, it was daunting, right? It was wide. Tell me a little bit about your early experiences in trying to get your enterprise off of the ground.
Sure. Boy, just a lot of YouTube videos, and a lot of gurus out there giving you their 2 cents, and telling you how to do it, what to do, what not to do. And a lot of talking, and really just not really knowing what is the best path, and the path of least resistance, and how to be successful in this space, and so many different opinions, and so many people out there, charging, a substantial amount of money, to offer their services, which I found were really, they weren't offering a lot. It was more marketing, and creating this belief that you needed to use their product. And so it, again, that really didn't move the needle for me or put me in a contract ready position and until I crossed your path. And with all your experience, your coaching really, it made it clear how to do this business and how to do it right. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm all in.
Well, thank you again. Enough of the Mutual Admiration Society of Walter. I'm really interested in the decision-making process that Scott went through. And so you have established the fact that you are a successful construction and real estate mogul in Chicago, right? And now you're tilting at the federal space. Um, what arena did you decide to use as a break into the federal space? I mean, what product or service are you looking to sell into the federal market?
Sure. Well, I uh, looked into where the big spending was happening, and really wanted to kind of couple where the government's spending a lot of money and has a great need with a certain skill set that I felt like I could bring to the table. And so I started looking into the facility support services area. It's a broad category of everything from janitorial landscaping to IT. And so, that kind of put me on a path. I was also interested in wireless telecom because there's, a gigantic spend by the government and such a need in that space. And so I, while I have knowledge and skills in business and running a business, I don't have the past performance, which is a calling card in the GovCon space. And so I
Now let me
really,
let me just stop you. Let me stop you right
yeah,
there. Let me stop you right there because you met the place where the rubber meets the road. And if I'm a listener, I'm trying to connect the dots between this guy that just described himself as a construction and real estate mogul, telling me that he's now going to be providing wireless services and security services in the federal space. I mean, I could maybe see the connection between facility support and the construction, but help me understand how you're going to bring past performance to the table in these industries that are non-traditional.
sure. Well, truth be told, when COVID hit and remote working became a thing, we, like at our organization, well, we have a lot of offshore back office support that are critical to the running of our business. And so, as we were able to run our businesses remotely, I started looking at industries, again, non-traditional from what I'm coming from, but partnering with a best-in-class, bigger business that had the skill set and using my service disabled capture management ability to joint venture and win these government contracts with very little competition. I saw it as a path for success and volume and a way to kind of use this preferential um, uh, treatment that I've received from serving the country. I felt like that was the path to follow.
I mean, you let that roll off of your tongue so smoothly, and I think it's a result of the fact that you do have these decades of, hand-to-hand combat as an entrepreneur, and therefore you understand terms of art like partnering and joint venture, and they're comfortable to you. But for the average veteran, or veterapreneur out there, these are concepts that are new to them. So can you unpack that a little bit more granularly? Because I asked you the question about how you were going to perform and bring past performance to a market or industry that you have no past performance in, and you let partnering and joint venturing roll off of your tongue. Explain a little bit more granularly how those relationships or sources of supply empower your vision?
Sure. Well, yeah, some of those industries I don't have a lot of experience in, but again,
A
when you
lot. You have no experience in.
this is true. This is true. But again, like when I looked at the wireless telecom space, I formed a venture with a company called Khajiit Federal, and they're an incredible company. They have softwares and programs that nobody else is offering in the marketplace. And so while we're excited about what we can offer the federal government in the form of better services, more secure devices, saving them money, tremendous opportunities there. But we're also providing these services to federal contractors as a service disabled vet. I own 4 preferences. And so any of these bigger businesses, these prime contractors that are buying the Khajiit federal service through a service disabled vet owned small business joint venture, for every dollar they're spending with us, they get a $4 goal retirement credit that so they can consume the other $3, which is huge. It makes their contracts much more profitable. It's a service they're already buying now, and they're getting better service, more secure devices, better device management, and it's a savings, and it turns their wireless expense into a profit center. And so we're excited about the opportunities and the other partnerships with some of these prime contractors that we're looking forward to forming.
So if I heard you correctly, right, what you said was that, when you decided to look into the federal space, you split the Red Sea, if you will, by establishing a relationship with Walter, right? Got a little cotton in your ear so that you could see the clear path to the other side, and you decided to take communication, which is a ubiquitous need every enterprise has, and use it as your foundation. And then you said something, and I want the audience to pay particular attention to what Scott said. What Mr. Allbright said was he established a relationship with an existing company that had a best in class solution in the wireless space that was based on patented technology. And here's the part that would have slipped by your ears if you weren't, critically listening, and they agreed, right? So you got a company that is best in class in its industry on the commercial side of the equation that wants to get into the federal space. And Scott approached them and said, "Hey, by partnering up with me, I can let you take advantage of this Uber preference I own in the federal space." Is that accurate?
100%. And they were interested in this space. They've been a major player in the school district space and transportation space, and they're just a perfect fit for a federal contractor servicing the government. And so when we approached them, they were all in, and we're really excited to see where we're going to take this.
And so you said something else that I want to unpack for the audience because I'm a sophisticated listener. What you said was that this solution that you're bringing to the market has, of course, its agency benefit in terms of creating greater securitization, cost savings on the agency side. But you said something that was extremely forward leaning, and you said that there was a commercial application that you have with large prime contractors that allow you to take their current communication spend, their current mobile communication and security spend, and turn it from a profit center, I'm sorry, from a cost center into a profit center in their business. And you were saying something about you have 4 preferences. Can you kind of unpack that just a minute for the audience?
Sure. Well, the federal government has mandated that prime contractors subcontract 23% of the contract awards that they receive to small businesses, vet-owned small businesses, service disabled, you name it. And so they get a credit for that when they subcontract that to a small business. So, because I own four preferences, I'm service disabled, I'm veteran owned, I'm small disadvantaged, and I'm small business. For every dollar they spend on a service they're already buying now, wireless telecom, they get a $4 credit from the government towards this goal that they need to subcontract 23% of all their contracts out to smaller businesses. So again, they're able to consume the other $3 because they get a $4 credit, for every dollar. They don't have to subcontract as much of their contracts out. They can consume that $3 worth of contract internally, so it's more profitable for them, and they're putting themselves in compliance with the federal government. Some of these large prime contractors are getting down selected now because they're not meeting some of these subcontracting goals, and so it just puts them these primes in a better position to show that they're doing their part and they're following the rules, and puts them in a better position for contract awards in the future.
I'm thinking to myself as I'm listening to you, Scott, that there are a number of veterans out there, veterpreneurs or entrepreneurs, if you will, that don't have your sophistication level. And I'm listening to the way that you handled this subject matter, and I'm impressed by it, just to be honest with you, to be transparent. So the question that is popping into my mind is, can I get Scott to use his example, of transitioning from commercial construction into the federal space? Can I get Scott to use his example as a benchmark that other disabled veterans could look at? And would Scott be willing to come back periodically and unpack the milestones and bridges that he crosses for our audience so that they could get the continued benefit of this experience that you have? Would you be willing to participate in something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much business out there that there's enough food there for a lot of people to eat. So I'm would be a blessing to help others who bore the battle and served our country. And so, yeah, glad to help.
Excellent. I appreciate you and your willingness to join me on that leg of the journey. And I expected to have an elongated interview where I drill into your background and the you and Debbie taking trips across Europe, when you were a younger man. But I think I have a broader opportunity that I want to take advantage of, and that is memorializing your transition and your success, and using that as a roadmap or a bag of breadcrumb we can leave for other veterans, um,
Hmm.
to maybe duplicate your effort. And if you're willing to sign up for that, now I got to come up with a name for this segment. Albright's Corner. I'll come up with something. Something. But folks, Scott Allbright, you guys can Google him and look him up in terms of what he's done on the construction side of the equation. Made his way to a multimillionaire um, without the veterpreneur benefit that he's enjoyed. Now that his industry's contracted, he's taking this benefit that he earned many, many years ago and using it to create some additional generational wealth for his family. And he's going to share that process with you if you join us during the next installment of my Patriot Report. Until then, Walter Cotton saying, thanks, Scott, and I'm out.
Bye, everybody.
Welcome to the Ability to movement. You have one of three options. You can subscribe, request an invitation, or log in if you're a returning member.